Welcome to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast, where we celebrate Minnesota's incredible fiction authors and the stories that make our literary scene so vibrant. I'm Rob Jung.
And I'm Michael MacBride. Together, we're the team behind Bell Cow Productions and the Bell Cow Catalog, a digital catalog designed to connect Minnesota authors with readers, libraries, and indie bookstores.
The catalog will be heading to all 377 Minnesota libraries, 80 plus indie bookstores, plus those in border cities such as Sioux Falls, Fargo, Superior, and La Crosse.
And now with this podcast, we get to bring those amazing voices to life. Every episode features one of our herd members talking about their books, their writing journey, and the stories behind the stories.
And before we start, let us apologize for all the cow-related puns you're about to hear.
All right, let's dig in.
Welcome to the Bell Cow Herd podcast. I'm Rob Jung here with Bell Cow co-founder Michael MacBride. And we have with us today, delighted to have with us, John Heckenlaible, who is a writer of a wonderful book about the city of New Prague, Minnesota. John, welcome.
Thank you. Great to be here with you, gentlemen.
Yeah. So you were telling us you split time now, or you entirely live in Arizona. And I'm wondering, what is the connection then to New Prague of all the cities in Minnesota?
Well, I split time. You might find this odd, but I actually come back to Minnesota during the summer and stay in Arizona during the winter. People might find that unusual, but that's the way I do it. I have family that still lives up there, and so got a free place to stay, and I'm still really, really tightly connected to New Prague. I was born and raised there, and I still have friends. As a matter of fact, I went back for a birthday party a couple of weeks ago in the middle of January, believe it or not, and got together with a whole group of friends, went to like St. Patrick's Tavern, which is this little bar. It's the typical Minnesota location, little village, a church, a bar, and a baseball field. And went back and met up with friends there and just had a great time reconnecting. Never really lost touch. So I guess saying reconnecting, never really lost touch with New Prague because that's who I am.
And I assume the bar had pull tabs. And if people don't know what pull tabs are, they can look those up. But that is definitely something from Minnesota. So
we made our ROI was not that good. We made $4 off of pull tabs. I won't tell you what our investment was.
So tell us about your writing journey. How did you get started? What brought you to this point in your writing career?
So I'm a marketing person, and so I've written countless articles for newspapers and magazines over my career. But I'm currently the public information officer for a community college in Arizona, and which gives me summers off, which is why I get to go back to Minnesota. And there was a challenge by the library that said, write 50,000 words in November. Wow. Coincidentally, I'm an avid mountain climber, so I was on top of Camelback Mountain, at the summit of Camelback Mountain. And the first line of the book came to me. I wasn't thinking about it. It wasn't like something, it was like, I got to come up with that line. It just, poof, came to me. The line is, it wasn't where I wanted to be, but there was nowhere else I would have rather been. And I just looked down upon the city of Phoenix and said, expletive deleted, I have to write it now. And, coming up with that line, and then that challenge by the library at the college where I teach at in public information officer, it just led me on my journey. And I'm sure you've heard this when you've been speaking to other authors. It just came out. I had no choice. It was like the animal and alien that came bursting out of the stomach. I had no control. This book just, you've heard this before, right? It wrote itself.
Sometimes those books are struggles too, but when you get a line like that is a hook, that's often what I need for my stories, is some kind of hook, whether it is a novel thing in the writing process I'm doing, or kind of the format, or a first line, or a piece of dialogue that sets a scene. Yeah, I mean, there's something that you grab onto for sure. Um, I know Rob sometimes works with character names and things like that, but I don't think I've ever asked you what sometimes is the hook for you, other than I know you often draw from history, but
I'm sorry, is that for Bob or for me?
for Bob, sorry.
Okay.
Oh,
Yeah, I was curious. I was
no,
just
no, for
throwing it to
John.
you, so all three of us had a
You,
chance to.
okay.
I threw you off.
Um, but I don't, I guess I've never had a hook come to me like John did. My stories usually come out of some discovery when I'm traveling, and it's usually some sort of historical event or anomaly or something. And so, as a consequence, my books tend to be more plot driven than character driven, I think.
Hmm.
Um, but
Mhm.
I'd love to be struck, on the road to Emmaus with the lightning strike to wake me up and say, "Go write this book."
Well, you
You
need to
know,
go hike Camelback Mountain, apparently. So,
Maybe so.
so
So
Come on down.
did the rest of the book come to you as you were hiking then as well? Like, was that part of the process? Like, I need to go clear my mind. Let me go do something like hiking or lose myself so I can let my brain wander.
Actually, a little bit of both. Like I said, the book really wrote itself, and the hardest part I had with the book was shutting down the writing because still work full time, and I on school nights I would be up until like 3 o'clock in the morning because I just literally could not shut it down, and I'd look at what I wrote, and I go, where did that come from? I have no idea. So I didn't go into it like with preconceived notions. It just built on itself. And I've had a lot of friends who because it's tightly connected to New Prague and Montgomery,
yeah,
there are people that kind of personalities pop up through the book. And so, they've asked me, well, where did you come up with that person? How did you come up with that person? Because they all know, my friends from New Prague and Montgomery know me really well. So they go, okay, I recognize that person, but where did you get that character? And I
huh.
don't really know. They just came into my head.
So are you out looking for another inspiration, or is there another book in the works, or are you waiting for lightning again?
Um, I already, so there's already a character I want to explore. It's a whole storyline I want to explore. And part of it is maybe perhaps peevishly, I want to get back at my editor because she told me to take out this one like subplot, and I really like this character. It's just this farmer who's just an earnest, wonderful man, just tied to the earth, and his life is devoted to animal husbandry and getting the most out of his farm and building his farm, and the the book starts on his deathbed, and I don't want to give too much away, but I already have the first line where
Okay.
he's on his deathbed, and then it goes back through his life in New Prague, of course. He's a Czech farmer, and how he loved high school, he loved school, he loved sports, but his father passed away, and in the 1940s, he had to take over the farm, and it just talks about his life and what he did in the little town Vesely, Minnesota, where he kind of grew up and went to church and learned his catechism and all that. So that's kind of the next book.
Okay.
Cool.
Interesting. Um, excuse me. So are the are the well, you've written the one book, you've got another in mind. Do you sort of invent characters as they go along, or do you rely on your existing friends, the names, of course, being buried to keep, to protect the innocent? But how do you come up with your characters?
Some just came up out of the blue. Just I have no idea where they came from. And there's another one, and I don't think I'm giving away too much here. There's another one who is his nickname is Crush. It's a small town in Minnesota, so everybody had nicknames. And so this particular character, his name is Crush, and he's based on two or three people One is one of my closest friends from high school who was a champion wrestler, and then combination of another guy who went to Mankato State and was a bouncer at the strip club in Mankato. So I made up those characters, and then those characters. I made up that character, which is a combination of these two. And then there's other characters where I needed something to help propel the plot, so I came up with the character to help move it along.
Huh.
Yeah. I'm
Well, John, I
curious.
got to tell you that excuse me, Michael, but
Yeah.
I just want to interject that I was a sports editor at the Mankato Free Press back a few years back, and I wasn't even aware there was a strip club in Mankato. Anyway, Michael, I interrupted. I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was going to ask if any of the characters are bakers, since Montgomery especially is known for their klatchkes.
Well, that's funny. Oh gosh, it's funny you say that, Michael, because I do touch on that. How there's even though they're both Czech communities, New Prague and Montgomery, there's that. I kind of bring up a rivalry between the two communities as to who has the makes the better kolaches. And full disclosure, I actually participated in the Kalachki eating contest at the Kalachki Days in Montgomery one year at the Montgomery Kalachki Days. I didn't win, but and I mentioned this in the book. I was hungry, and I wanted something to eat, and then my girlfriend at the time said, "Well, there's a Kalachki eating contest. If you participate, you get to eat all the kolaches you want." It's like, "Well, okay, I'm in."
Did you
There,
win?
No, I didn't win, but I, I I I got my fill of pruned kolaches.
a friend of ours told us, I'm not native to Minnesota, so like when we moved here, there were people who were like, "Oh, you got to try this, oh, you got to go there," and someone told us at one point we had to go to Montgomery and have some, and I was like, "Okay," so we went down there and we got some. I can't remember what the month was. It wasn't during Klatchkey days though. I know that was a different time of the year, but anyway, it was interesting. And I grew up in southeastern Michigan where we have a big Polish community,
Yeah,
and we have punchkis, which are Fat Tuesday. They're, I mean, uh, the simplest term is a jelly donut, but they're like deep fried and they're delicious. And similarly, there are different communities that argue about whose is better and whatever.
yeah.
So I can totally imagine the rivalry between these two towns.
So I imagine if you grew up in Michigan, like as you say, that you play a pretty mean game of euchre.
Yes. Euchre runs in our family for sure. Yep.
There's a little, and this is actually based on the truth. So I did weave truth in actual situations into the book. My best friend in high school, I was the best man in their wedding. He and his wife met on an athletic bus. So we would take the students would take the bus to watch the baseball or basketball games in another town. So they met playing euchre on a bus going from, I think we were going from New Prague to Le Sueur. And so we were playing euchre, somehow playing euchre on the bus. And that's how they met. They dated all throughout high school, got married. I was the best man in their wedding, and they're still married, have grandkids. They're just the most wonderful people in the world. And I talk about them loosely in the book as well.
Cool.
Huh. So, which one had the Bowers?
Yeah.
It's so funny because I am the world's worst euchre player, and I always throw down the wrong Bauer. And we always win because my best friend, who I'm talking about, always knew what I was going to do. He knew how bad I was, but I would always make the same mistake all the time. And we'd get the trick, and people would go, "How did you get that trick?"
Yeah, I mean, like you said, I mean, a good euchre partner reads your mind. You know the patterns, and
hmm
there's almost I mean, there is an art to kind of crafting a good team, and it's not usually making them both the best player, but it's about figuring out what that person is going to do in that scenario, so
Yeah,
you know what to play. And if I call up a nine as Trump, then you can kind of know kind of what to expect and how it's going to go. So
yeah.
um, yeah.
Um,
Anyway, we could
and then,
ramble on about euchre for days.
Yeah, yeah.
well,
We all.
I did get really.
I grew up playing euchre too, so
Oh
among other
yeah.
card games. So
Yeah.
so
So
I
I went back
understand.
for my nephew's birthday party a couple of weeks ago, and we're at the house, and we get the parties going, and all of a sudden you hear the snap crack of the cards being shuffled, and sure enough, two games of euchre. We ended up playing till like 2:30 in the morning. It was the absolute best.
That's wonderful.
Uh, um, John, just changing the subject, but is there a go-to author, an author who's regardless, of what their next book is, you're going to buy it and read it?
Yes, and this author actually was part of my inspiration for my book. It was Dennis Lehane,
Oh,
and the book that really got me thinking about, well, I can write a book about New Prague, was his book Empire Falls, because he wrote about this small town and the characters, and kind of the sub and things that go on in a small town that nobody thinks happens. And I thought, well, boy, he really made a pretty intriguing story with Empire. All his books are great. I mean, he's just a wonderful writer
it's a great
for me.
writer.
And so yeah, I mean, I see anything by him. Philip Caputo, I love reading his stuff too. I think he was from Worthington, if I'm not mistaken.
Really? I didn't know that.
And yeah, I think, well, I thought so. I might be incorrect on that, but I love Philip Caputo's books as well.
Cool.
Okay.
Before I go too much further, would you mind reading a little bit of your
Well,
book?
if
And I don't know if you have something queued up or whatever, but something fairly short to kind of give us a taste.
yeah, I will if you don't mind me kind of stumbling through this. So this is kind of a little bit of world building, talking about the rivalry between Montgomery and New Prague. And so the
Perfect.
Bohemian Bowl represented a rivalry between Montgomery and New Prague that started when both high schools fielded football teams in the early 1900s. For the residents of the two small Czech farming communities, it was the equivalent of the North versus South at Gettysburg. The games were often heated, but remarkably cleanly played. It was off the field where the real hijinks took place. One year, a group of civic-minded residents from New Prague scrounged up an old manure spreader and somehow hoisted it onto the roof of Montgomery's high school. The feat is made all the more remarkable because they were well fueled by beer. They had to haul the manure spreader through the center of town while steering clear of Frank Hrushka, Monty's night shift cop, and because the work was so exhausting, they took a nap immediately after accomplishing the mission. They woke up and made their getaway a mere 10 minutes before the school janitor arrived to unlock the doors. Officer Hrushka only received a reprimand from the city fathers because they and he knew that they couldn't fire him for the simple reason that no one else would take the job. The insult festered for a couple of years until the men's softball team from Montgomery agreed that a fitting revenge would be to line the main street of New Prague with outhouses. The older and smellier, the better. Unlike the manure spreader, this idea was impressive for the scale of the operation and the sheer logistics involved. First, they had to find and collect the outhouses, then store them for a few days, and then finally transport them to New Prague's main street. There's 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 some truth to that. That there's so and what that does is that leads to a huge caper where somebody, and this actually happened, somebody climbed the Montgomery Water Tower and painted in 10-foot tall letters NPHS, New Prague High School, on the water tower, facing the highway into town. So as you're driving from New Prague to Montgomery, you would see NPHS on the water tower, and it was like that for years and years and years. So that actually happened, and what I just read was kind of building up to that situation.
Yeah. I think all three of us grew up in small towns, and I
Absolutely.
think we all can identify with that kind of, as you said, hijinks. I know in the town that was our arch rival, there were things, maybe not of that magnitude, but certainly the thought processes were there to do to do those sorts of things that today look rather mild in comparison to what goes on in today's world. So,
Yeah,
Well,
I
so
wrote my small town book. That was The Lives from Beechwood Drive. But Rob, you haven't written yours yet. You need to write a small town book,
No,
apparently.
yeah, apparently I need to. Yeah.
But like you said, I mean,
I've got too many classmates that are still alive. I gotta wait a few more years.
So it's funny you say that. And this is going to sound because I talk about so the book starts with my father passing away and my longtime girlfriend breaking up with me at the same time. And then I meet another girl and kind of talk about our relationship there. I kind of had to wait for both their moms to pass away before I could really write the book.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I did contact both of them and said, I gave them fair notice and said, I just want to let you know, you're not named, but if you would ever pick up this book, you would know it's you. Uh,
that's
it's
funny.
funny.
So, what was their reaction?
um, they're actually very, very positive. They were
Okay,
both,
good.
um,
You didn't have to go into witness protection or anything.
no, I kept in touch with the one who broke my heart, and she's still very special, and just a good friend, um, and then the other one, just very very positive reaction. I think the fact that the book was well written, that kind of overcame any maybe animosity or anger that they had. I'm not sure. All is good though.
And if nothing else, they've been immortalized. And so there's some kind of flattery to that as well, I'm sure.
Yeah.
But
So, do you find in your before we started the podcast, you were talking about being in Leadville, Colorado for a book event. Do you find when you do book events that people from small towns, regardless of where it is, sort of identify with the book?
Yes, and that's actually part of the reason why I selected the passage that I did, because people always there's two things in the book that people relate to from small towns is the stuff, the hijinks
Yeah,
as we call them, and then everybody had a nickname. Everybody, and I have a lot of fun with that in the book. And so I'll be talking to somebody and I'll go, small town, what was your nickname? And then it just opens up this great story. Well, my nickname was Punchy because when I was in elementary school, I was always really whatever, but everybody
yeah.
has a nickname, and so that's a common theme that everybody brings out when we're talking about their experience growing up in a small town.
So cool. So
and
have you started the next one yet? Or is it still just
um,
a thought in your head?
Yes, I actually have. It's funny they
Hmm.
mentioned that. I did because that the first chapter was just kind of came to me, and I had to write it down, and um, I'm excited about it. I'm excited to explore that character that my editor didn't like.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, that's why we save those. All authors have, several of those, 5 to 10,000 word chunks that we either decided later that weren't going to fit in the book, or somebody told us they weren't going to fit. And those are always the fodder for another book, or at least a short
Yeah.
story or something.
they always
So
tell us
Yes.
to kill our darlings, but I always hold on to them. They're
yeah,
held in a file somewhere for later use or
yeah.
filed away mentally, to be repurposed at another time. So
Well,
So
and so I do have to kind of give this to a college friend because he was telling me a story about when his father passed away and what his father said on his deathbed. And I took that and I went, my gosh, that's a perfect first paragraph. And I already had this character that I really, really liked. And I
yeah.
just went, okay, I have to bring these two together.
yeah.
Well, we are looking forward to it. So the next one. Um, we tend to close these out with something that we euphemistically call the lightning round, which are a series of questions that really don't have necessarily anything to do with your book or with writing necessarily, but are kind of character questions that might divulge a little more about you and your personality to the listeners and the watchers of the podcasts.
Well, I'm
So,
still working on
Michael,
my
have you?
personality, so we'll see how this goes.
I think we just got a snapshot of it right there. Michael,
Yeah,
you got
for
an
sure.
opening question?
Well, sure. I'm curious, like being from the small towns that you're talking about, I'm wondering like what I don't know, what is the what are some of the attributes or traits of those small towns aside from hijinks and the bakeries and those kind of things that you think are overlooked in favor of bigger cities? Like what is at that beating heart of those small towns that keep people there and bring people in from other towns?
Um, I hope I don't get too long-winded on this answer, but
It's,
I was with a group of, we call ourselves the Knuckleheads. It's a group of friends from New Prague. And we were talking about the book, and one of them said, "Well, what is the book?" And another one of my buddies said, "It's a love story." And they said to Katie or Jeannie, the females in the book, "No, no, no, no. It's a love story to New Prague and a love story to Montgomery because it is truly the core of who I am, and it it is core to who I am because it the support, the foundation it gives anybody who's willing to accept it in a small town. Um, I guess I'll use this example. When my father passed away, um, we did not have to turn on our oven for like 3 weeks because
yes.
we were just overwhelmed with hot dish and bars, and and
Yes.
and so the outpouring of support that the community has always given me. Um, it sometimes I got beat up by some people, but it was always because I was being a wise guy and I deserved to be beat up. It really instilled in me um, the good and bad and what type of person to be, because in a small town you can't really hide, can you?
Right.
You are who you are, and your warts and all are going to be pretty obvious, and so you learn how to get along pretty quickly, and people are accepting, but to a certain extent, and they help you grow, and they nurture you, they support you, and that's why I love New Prague, and that's why I go back every year, and that's why I wrote the book. So hopefully I answered your question, Michael. I may have
Yeah.
got off track.
I think that's a great answer. Um, what's your favorite non-writing hobby?
I actually have a couple of them, and I kind of wish I was not here in Monument Valley, but in my den at home. I collect hats and helmets. I said I'm a mountain climber and I'm a skier, but I also collect hats and helmets, which I've been doing since I was 10 years old. And I'm not talking about like, baseball caps and trucker hats. I have hats from Bhutan, Vietnam. I have military helmets going back to World War One. I have fire helmets from the
Wow.
1800s. I have hundreds of hats. If you've ever seen the Star Trek episode, The Trouble with Tribbles, that's
Mhm.
basically my hat collection. Michael, you
Huh?
know what I'm saying? And they're all over. They're all over my office at college. They're all over my den at home. I have several hundred hats that have Air Force helmets from the 1950s. And I love doing it. The other fun thing about it is when family members and friends travel, they'll see a hat and they'll take a picture of it and they'll say, "Do you have this one?" I'll go, "Nope, buy it. I'll reimburse you." So
That's
what it
nice.
does is it becomes fun for my friends and family because they're kind of like looking for stuff too. They're looking for a unique hat.
What
I
a
love it.
great, what a great. How did you get started with that?
I, you know, I don't know. I think I was just fascinated by headgear. I remember watching the Tarzan movies, and of course, checking out Jane, but like, seeing the pith helmets and going, "That's so cool." And I'm a big uh, film noir fan. I love film noir, and they're always wearing the great fedoras and all that kind of
Yeah.
stuff. And
Yeah.
and so I just and when you watch those old movies, the hat really helped define the character, right?
Mhm.
And
Sure.
so maybe because I have that innate writer's talent or whatever in me, and just looking at the hats on the screen, it just fascinated me.
Yeah, that's interesting. And literally a man who wears many hats, I guess then. So,
How
um,
to maybe.
I'm curious about early inspirations. We talked about some of the ones that inspired this specific book, but in terms of books that were foundational for you, maybe as a child or an early reader, like what were some of those books that you read that stuck with you for whatever reason?
Uh, First book that I remember distinctly was A Wrinkle in Time. Just that book, I just devoured it. And then what really captured me, and it just turned me into a voracious reader, was Ray Bradbury. Just
No.
just just Ray Brad. I couldn't not read enough of his stuff. And then I turned to cynicism and sarcasm and went deep into Kurt Vonnegut. But I and people I will ask like, what inspired you to read? And if you remember the movie 3 Days of the Condor with Robert
Oh
Redford,
yeah, yeah, great movie.
um,
I have not
there's
seen
a
that. Sorry, I know that's atrocious. I'm supposed to have seen it, but I haven't. I'll admit.
there. So that's what really drove me to read. I mean, I saw that when it came out in what 72, 73, whenever it was. I was already
Yeah.
reading before that, but after I saw that movie, and when I say the following line, that's what said, I'm going to become a reader. I'm going to absolutely devour books. And the line is, Robert Redford is on the lam. You know, the CIA or FBI, whoever's they're trying to get him, hired assassins are trying to get him, and yet he's always foiling them. He's always like one step ahead, and he goes into like uh, AT&T in New York City, and you know somehow does something to like throws the FBI or CIA off the path, and they go, "How does he know this?" John Houseman goes, "How does he know this?" And the other CIA guy goes, "He reads." Because that's Robert Redford's job for the CIA is
Yep,
to read. He reads
yeah,
everything. And
yep.
when he said that, he goes, he reads. The light bulb just went off. It's like boom. I'm going to read anything and everything.
Anything is possible.
Yeah.
Oh. What about you, Rob?
Any questions for us, John? Anything
Oh,
that you
sure.
would like to add that we haven't talked about? It's kind of winding down at the end of our time here, but uh, it's
Well,
been
I
delightful.
don't, I don't, I don't really have any questions. You guys, I mean, talking about reading. I mean, you guys, it's hard to find the time to read, isn't it? Because you just want to read so much. You know,
Yeah,
and
I have a philosophy. I have a philosophy that says if the stack of books that sits beside your bed that you haven't read isn't so tall that it threatens to fall over and crush you in your sleep, you don't have enough books.
okay, you just described my bedside.
That's
There we
funny.
go.
My approach is in the division is usually nonfiction I listen to as audiobooks, and fiction I read in book form. I like that way. So um, I don't know. I've enjoyed the audiobooks for like kind of learning. You know,
Yep.
you never know what you're going to need to know to get away from the CIA or FBI if you're Robert Redford. So I learn a lot from nonfiction that way.
Yeah.
But yeah, reading. You're right. There's never quite enough time for it. So, but there also is nothing quite like sitting down with a book and just focusing on that there and being present for the book. So,
Well, and I agree with you 100%. And so, it's dark out, so I can't look at Monument Valley anymore. So as soon as we finish up, I'm gonna jump into a book I've been reading. I can't remember the name of it right now. Um, Devils. It's about the days leading up to the Civil War.
oh,
Fascinating book.
Oh,
cool.
okay. Well, John, it's been a pleasure. Thanks for joining us on the podcast, and good luck with your next book.
Thank
Yeah.
you very much, gentlemen. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
And don't forget, you can see this book and more from Minnesota authors in the Bell Cow catalog, heading to libraries and indie bookstores across Minnesota and beyond.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday with another amazing Minnesota author.